in today's lesson, we're going to look at how we do research. We say a lot of times, we say scientists say this. Well, why do we care that a scientist said that? Why not? Did you hear what's her name said? She said this and this. I mean, well, why is a scientist more valid than what somebody said or my grandmother said, which could be tradition? That's good, okay? But what makes it scientific, okay? And this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the ways that we do a study, the ways that we determine something. So just because, and I happen to be a scientist. I have my degree in chemistry and biology. I happen to be a scientist, but I still am opinionated. So I might come in and I might say, well, I tell you what, Three Musketeers is probably the best candy bar. Well, is that an opinion or was that a study? Okay, so we got to look and we've got to say what's creditable, what's not creditable. We got to sort out good from junk. And I really get a kick out of somebody. You know what? Why is that good? Because I read that on the computer. I got that on the computer. Well, anybody can put anything on the computer, so we got to be careful. Oh, I Googled it and it said this. What's your source? How did they do this research? So these are some things we're going to talk about. These are some important parts of research. You'll not only learn these, you'll understand these terms. We've got several things, but later on I'm going to give you research and I'm going to ask you to tell me what's good about it and what's bad about it. We're going to have some reaction papers, and this is the thing. Some of the reaction papers that we're going to have, you're going to be like, oh, I think this is good, I think this is bad, I think this is total garbage, I think this is valuable. Well, once again, what's your opinion and what's good and what's bad? And this is a lot of it. You're going to find things in this section. When I give you reaction papers, come back to this section of your notes and go, okay, this makes good research. What's wrong with their research? Or what's good about their research? So, first of all, we have random sampling, okay? So, if we're going to test people or animals or things or places or whatever we're going to test, usually it's a subject, usually it's a human subject in psychology or an animal, okay? We have to have a good cross-section of samples, okay? If I want to find out the way people behave, then I don't want to go get everybody that has that same characteristic. So, for example, I want to find out if people like shopping. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go to the mall and do a survey. And so everybody I talk to is there at the mall, and I find out that they like shopping, they like shopping, they like shopping. Nope, that guy just got drugged there. He didn't like shopping at all. Okay? But that's not a good random sample because I don't have a cross-section of people. So once again, whatever research we have to say, do they have a good random sample? Was it a cross-section? Was it a little bit of everybody? Okay? And we got to be careful too, because sometimes we don't have, sometimes our random sampling, sometimes it's mostly guys or mostly girls. And in most research we need a combination, or it could be age group, okay? It could be age group. We want to go in and we want to see what kind of behavior it is. Well, if we're testing a particular age group, like if our test says, okay, I want to test adults 40 years and older, then that's one thing. But if it's people in general, then I've got to have a good cross-section. So random sampling. So a study is a bad study if it doesn't have a good random sample. You're going to see some studies that make decisions based on 3 or 4 people. Well, that's not a very good random sample. I don't have a good cross-section. I don't have enough sample area. Okay. So then we have a field study. Okay. So why is this good? Why is this bad? Field study means it's not in a lab. It's out where it actually exists. Well, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. It depends on what we're testing. All right? And then we have something called the mean. You may have learned this in math, but that's the average. Add them all up, divide by the total number, and that's the average. We have the median. That's the middle score. Okay? So, for example, in this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the middle score is a 4. That's the median score. The mode is the most frequent score. So, if this is our list of scores, okay, and we look, we've got some 5s. Oh, we've got more than one 5. We've got more than one 8, but we have 4 6s. So the most frequent score, the mode, would be 6. All right? Now, why are these important? Why are these important in research? We're fixing to do a whole video on standard deviation. And standard deviation is the difference from the mean, the difference from the average. What's normal? There's a saying, normal is just a setting on the dryer. What's normal? Well, it depends on what we're studying. what we're studying. You know, are we studying somebody in America? Are we studying prisoners? Are we studying people with bipolar disorders? Are we studying people that have an IQ of less than 55? Okay, what's the mean? What's the average of what we're studying? Okay, and then we have the variability. That's the difference from the mean. How far it is from the average. And then the range. The range is the difference between the highest and lowest values of data. The difference between the highest and lowest values of data. So if we look at this right here and we say, okay, what's the range? The highest is 8 and the lowest is 5. So the range here is 3. And once again, all of this is looking at what's the difference from the mean. What's the difference from the average? Now, I want you to read page 17 in your text. It's really interesting, and it talks about exactly what we're talking about here. There's research, okay? There's research, and when people do research, they have to be creditable. They have to be creditable. So just a quick Moodle drop here for this lesson, okay? So Moodle drop box. And once again, I noticed on that last one, be sure to put your name on there also. Put your name, and then PSYCH 101. Now, it'll come up, and when it comes into me, it'll come in through your Moodle, and I can trace it back, but be sure and put that on all of them. Okay? All right. And then I do a fun thing too, and I want you to do this. So we didn't do this with the first Moodle, but I do this with mine too. I want you to do this, okay? Even on test, okay? Even on test. I want you to put your name, the class we're taking, Psychology 101, and I want you to put self-grade. And I want to know what grade you think you got. Now don't be like, oh, well, I'll just put 100, okay? Because if you really earned it and you got 100, put that. But I just want to see what you think you would have got. Why? Because I want to look at this and I want you to be thinking, it's not about my grade, it's about what I did with it, okay? And you start developing responsibility for yourself. Now, that's not going to be your grade. I want to go on record here. That doesn't mean that's going to be your grade. So some of you are like, oh, well, I'll just be humble and put a 70. No, put whatever your self-grade is, okay? So what you're going to do on this, this is a simple one, okay? It's a simple assignment. You'll have this done easy, but it's a good one, okay? Because we're starting to develop reaction papers. We're starting to think for ourselves, okay? So on this page 17, they're talking about research, okay? I want you in the Moodle Dropbox, I want you to tell me 5 good points, okay? All right, I want you to tell me 5 good points, things that you like in that page. And you say, well, golly, I see 3 right away. Well, that's making us work. So 5 good points. They said this and this. Now you'll get good at it. A lot of you will just look and go, oh, I read this word, and that must be a good point. No, when you read the whole article, there's definitely things that are good points. Oh, good point. Oh, good point. Good point. Okay. All right. And then I want you to put 1 questionable point. Like, I'm not sure. You know what? They said that, but I don't know. And don't overly think it. But I want you to be critical. You know, in high school, it's kind of like this. In high school, we go through, and even in some classes in college, it's kind of like the teacher has a certain opinion that they want you to have. And they're kind of like, okay, we'll read this paper. When they get all done, they say, well, tell me what you thought about the paper. And you write it all up. And you go, I really didn't like the paper. That paper was really goofy. You know, that author was really kind of messed up. And the teacher gives it back to you and says, oh my goodness, you have no appreciation for good literature. You know, that's how dare you trash that paper, and that's the best paper I've ever read. And well, it's a little bit different here in psychology because we're asking you to think. We're asking you to be honest. So there's going to be some things, and some people may think it's a great point, and somebody may think it's a questionable point. So that's the deal. And then 1 application. Now, this will be a little bit tricky at first. So an application means you look at the article, and so then you say of what one way to apply it. Now, in this article, they talk about a particular research they're doing. So, you know, and then when you read this, I don't want to give you answers for application because that's what's going to show up on the deal. But you think about how you can apply it to your life, or how psychologists can apply it. So think about an application. You read that article, how can I apply it? We don't ask you to do this very often before you get in classes like this, so it's hard. But by the time you get done, you do reaction papers. You're not gonna sit down and write a draft. You're gonna sit down on the computer and you're just gonna start typing. And you're gonna be like, oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a questionable point. I got a question on this. Oh, and yeah, you know what? That's a good application. We can do this. And you're gonna get good because that's what the college class is about. Assessing the good, finding the questionable, and then using the application. Now, the beauty about this class and the beauty about the way we're going to teach it is I'm probably a little more lenient and I'm getting to know a lot of you guys and a lot of you I already know. And so I'm probably a little more lenient and I'll probably give you suggestions and different things. So what happens is, and you will find this, what happens is it's kind of a comprehensive on some of these papers. So what will happen is, if you don't get it back, okay, I'll give you input, and what it is it's a mastery, and I'll get it, and then you get so many points for it. Now, what will happen is, after a period of time, I'll tell you how many points you have. But here's what I'm going to do. If you give me a Moodle Dropbox, okay, and you put some effort in, I mean, you didn't just do something really quick to meet the deadline and go, but when you finish the Moodle Dropbox, if it's not what we're looking for, then I'm going to give you some tips and send it back to you and say, hey, be sure and look at this and this and this. And I'm not going to give you answers, but I'm going to encourage you. Once you get going, though, you're going to be a paper manufacturer in this class, and it'll prepare you for other classes too. So once again, reaction papers. What's good? What's questionable? And what's an application? All right. So once again, we talked about this. These are things in research that makes it creditable, takes us away from an opinion and into something that's very creditable. The next video that we're going to see, this was a short one here on this part. Once again, you notice on the weekly deal that we've got a section here of 2 weeks that you can do all these different things at your own pace. So keep moving. You're doing great. The next one we have is standard deviation. And it will be a total separate one. It's not long at all, but you need to understand standard deviation. It's critical for psychology. So I'll release you, and you will go watch the one on standard deviation the next opportunity you get.